Sponsored by JMR Rentals, jmrny.com.
Hello and welcome to No Rest for the Weekend. I'm Jason Godbey, and today on the program, we are taking a look back at the summer of 2023 and giving you our picks for the best films of the summer. And to help me do that, joining me now via Zoom are No Rest for the Weekend's own Maribeth Thueson and our man in Hollywood and the man behind ActuallyPaid.com, Mr. William Hammon. Welcome, guys.
Hi, Jason. Nice to be here.
Hey.
It's great to do this again. I wish we could do this more often, but, schedules being what they are. We got a lot to talk about. There's a lot of movies to get through. So I'm just going to kind of go around the table, and I'll preface this by saying we have not discussed which movies we picked. So this is going to be a surprise, and I'm assuming there's going to be some overlap among the films. All right, so Maribeth, what is your first film?
We're starting right at the top. My favorite film of the summer so far, I have to say, Barbie. Who knew? I wasn't expecting to like this movie at all, but I totally loved it. And why? Because it's just fun. It's the funnest movie I've seen for a long time, and it's perfect for summer. And it has a great message, but mostly it's just fun. And it's really funny too. All kinds of jokes, all kinds of Easter eggs, all kinds of cameos. It's just fun from beginning to end. The clothes are fabulous. The sets are fabulous. Everything about it is fabulous.
What was it about it that kind of put it over the edge for you?
A couple of really good performances. First of all, Margot Robbie as stereotypical Barbie. She plays it just right with such sincerity, and yet it's it's so absurd. And later on in the film, when she starts to learn about herself and about the real world, she's totally convincing. I love the moment when she sits down to an elderly woman at a bus stop, and she takes a look at her. She's never seen anyone who's old before. And she looks at her and she says so sincerely, "You're beautiful." And it just is such a touching moment to me. The older woman says, "I know," which is a great answer. She's played by an Oscar-winning costume designer, by the way. And so you've got the combination of the fun stuff plus a little bit of the feels too. And like I said, a great message about how equality is best for everyone.
Very cool. That woman I think is Anne Roth.
Thank you. I didn't have her name.
who's look her IMDb, her kids. She's 91. Amazing. Yeah, she's 91 years old and she's got a closet full of Oscars. Going to you next. What's on your list?
My top for the summer, my top for the year so far, is the other half of this equation, Oppenheimer. Nothing against Barbie. I absolutely loved it, especially Kate McKinnon as Weird Barbie and the soundtrack. Really good stuff there. Lots of fun. But Oppenheimer is the first true Best Picture contender I've seen so far this year. Nolan's cinematic eye has never been better. Cillian Murphy's performance is nomination worthy, as is Robert Downey Jr. As Louis Strauss. I'm looking forward to 10 years down the road, having debates between this, Chaplin, and Kiss Kiss Bang Bang as his best role. Very strong supporting cast: Emily Blunt, Josh Hartnett, Casey Affleck, Rami Malek, and my man Matt Damon here. And of course, Florence Pugh making me swoon more than I should for a married man in his 30s. But I'm a single guy in my 40s, so it's okay. The plot structure is really strong, and this is what this is his stock and trade of just kind of messing with timelines. The way he basically splits the story up into two parts, one being in color for everything leading up to the bomb, and then one in black and white for everything that happens after it. It's a really great visual metaphor of the promise of scientific discovery and study and exploration, and then the black and white, very binary consequences once the trigger is pulled. It's absolutely masterful. There's not a single element that rings false. I didn't even get the least bit bored with this being a 3-hour movie, I mean, I guess mild spoiler, they detonate the bomb 2 hours in. I'm thinking, what are they going to do for the last hour of this? And they filled it brilliantly. Not once did it drag.
So my question is, though, was Barbie also on your list?
Just shy of it. It's like seventh or eighth for the summer for me, and not quite top 5, but still just so much fun.
For me, it's hard for me to say which one is the best, and these are in no particular order. We don't do countdowns and grades and things like that really on this show. I'd probably say that Across the Spider-Verse was my top. I saw that in the theater. I did not see the previous film in the theater, so I really wanted to see this one in the theater, and it did not disappoint. It is a lot of movie. It picks up right where the first chapter left off, and we continue the story of Miles Morales. A lot of it is Gwen Stacy's film, and she gets a lot of character development. We also get a lot of weird and wonderful worlds of Spider-Man. My only criticism would be that at times it was a bit overwhelming. Like at times I was like I didn't write a review for it because I feel like I need to see it at least 2 or 3 times before I can really write anything about it. And I just didn't get a chance to go back to the theater. It's difficult to grade because it's not the end of, we don't get the end of the story yet. It ends on a ... So it's hard to say because it doesn't feel like a complete movie yet. Because it ends on a cliffhanger. But other than that, I thought it was amazing. All right, going back to Maribeth, what's your next movie?
Well, oddly enough, Spider-Man was on my list, and I agree with your assessment. They threw everything in there they possibly could. It's a little too much, a little too long. Oppenheimer was also on my list. And I agree with your assessment too, that it's about a scientist. How do you make a scientist interesting? Well, they don't bother talking about the science that much, but it was absorbing the entire time, surprisingly. Yes, absolutely. My next movie that neither of you have mentioned yet is Asteroid City, which is the Wes Anderson movie. Now, he's an acquired taste, I admit, but if you like Wes Anderson, you'll love this movie. I think this was much better than his last one. And he uses the device again of a story within a story within a story. It was a little confusing, I know, to some people in the audience that I saw it with, but if you manage to keep it straight, it's fine. And really, you have to look beneath all of the very square camera shots and everything to realize that this is really a movie about grief. The main character, Jason Schwartzman's character, his wife has just died. And although he's not overt in his grief, the grief is there. The grief is there with his children, who he hasn't told yet. The grief is there in other characters for other things. And so it makes a nice counterpoint to all of the bright colors and everything. It's a movie that you have to think about a little bit, but it's also fun. It has funny moments and fun moments, and just totally absorbing. I loved it. And cameos by everybody.
Now, did you see French Dispatch?
Yes.
The one I thought that movie felt like he was sort of parodying himself a little bit.
It went almost a little bit too far, and that's why I liked this one better. This one harkens back in feeling a little bit more to some of the earlier ones. So while he used some of the same device of, like he did in French Dispatch, of the story within the story within the story type thing, it was more appealing, much more appealing.
Yeah, he's always got that, like, it's goofy and funny, but then there's that melancholy, like, undertone in there. All right, so Bill, did you have Asteroid City on your list?
Not quite. I did see it. I did like it, especially Steve Carell, and I got a little alien keychain at the movie theater for it. I definitely really like the way I compare this a little bit to Lady in the Water, in that this is Wes Anderson acknowledging his critics, but he's doing it in a much more fun and understanding way, whereas M. Night Shyamalan was doing it completely cynically. Next for me, basically my, in essence, hidden gem movie for the summer, Theater Camp. Absolute joy, especially for someone like me who was a theater nerd in high school. This is hopefully just going to be your, little movie that could just absolute delight. based on a short film that Molly Gordon and like Nick Lieberman, Ben Platt, all these, well-known theater, film, comedy people have done. They did the short a few years ago. They adapted it into a feature length. Really stellar cast of both adults and children, kind of parodying the manic nature of theater as an art form and as a hobby. But it's also this kind of fun story about, these are kids. This is the one opportunity they have to basically own the spotlight and be in the majority as their own selves for once, rather than, potentially being ostracized or left in the corner. And they make the most of it. As one of the characters says, these are theater kids. They turn cardboard into gold. And the way this mockumentary style, in the best traditions of Christopher Guest, does is basically like show over the course of 4 weeks in almost slapstick funny fashion how these kids can pull it all together, how the adults are more childish than the children. Absolutely just everything a kid like me who was, part of this group would have wanted. And again, absolutely fun cast. Like I said, Molly Gordon, Ben Platt, Patty Harrison. She's absolutely great. Amy Sedaris has a fun small role. Alan Kim from Minority. He was the littlest one in Minority. He's in this movie as an aspiring agent. So he spends the whole camp experience on the phone trying to book gigs for the other campers. It's just so twisted. I love it.
Maribeth, that's got to be on your list too, right?
I also loved theater camp. And I hope it finds an audience, because I'm afraid that the audience may be a little limited due to the nature of all the in-jokes in the movie. But it is great fun. And I have to admit, brought a tear to my eye at the end. No tear stick needed.
Yeah. I'm just going to say, the song. How did it work? It worked. How did it work?
I don't know how it worked. Terrible. The lyrics were terrible.
It was so awful, but it was perfect.
I have not seen it. Maribeth reviewed it for us, and I was like, oh, I got to see this movie. Because I love, Waiting for Guffman, and there's a lot of theatrical movies that, it's in good company with.
It's like Best in Show for kids.
Yeah, nice. I think it depends on when your definition of summer begins, but for me, it begins whenever Disney tells me it's summer. So I'm going to go with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which kicked off in May. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was, I didn't expect it. I had heard a lot about it. I had seen a couple of reviews, finally saw it, and I thought, wow, this, first of all, it's a lot of movie. I think it was a really fitting ending to the trilogy, and it really did it as a chapter of their story, of these misfit superhero story. I thought it ended on a great note. All the stuff. One of the things I thought was the most amazing thing about it, a lot of it concerns the Rocket character, and you see a lot of his backstory, how he was made, and his tragic beginning. It's very sad, and if you're, I wouldn't show a kid this movie. If you have a kid who, especially if they love animals, there's a lot of animal cruelty and stuff in it, and it's very emotional. And the thing I kept having to tell myself was, it's a CGI character. It's a CGI character. They're getting all of this emotion out of a computer-generated image. I was just blown away by that. But James Gunn did it great. It's nice for him to leave on a high note, leaving Marvel, going on to DC. We'll see what he does there. But I thought it was great. I thought it was really solid. And I haven't really been all that crazy about what the MCU has been offering. And this was a high point for it. We're back to Maribeth. What's next on your list?
I guess we have to include Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. It's a ludicrous plot. Let's just say that. But the action sequences, the stunts, the car chase, which isn't only a great car chase, but is also humorous. It's a summer popcorn movie. What can you say? Haley Atwell is a nice addition. She does a good job. Like I said, the plot is kind of ludicrous. It's an AI creature almost. It's a program which has become so smart that it's become self-aware and is starting to take over programs of everything in the world and will control the world. And the only thing that can stop it is a physical key. Now, why a physical key would be needed to stop what's essentially a computer program, I don't know. But that's the MacGuffin. That's what sets them all off, chasing all over the world to find the key. So whatever. But anyway, the stunts are great.
When I saw that the plot was like a rogue AI, I was like, oh, this is obviously written by a Writers Guild writer. Bill, was Mission Impossible on your list?
So quick recap, yeah, Across the Spider-Verse, loved it. Probably could have squeezed the entire plot into one movie if you trimmed it a bit better. But otherwise, lots of fun. Mission Impossible, yeah, the inciting events of the plot are kind of absurd, but yes, the metaphor of an AI basically taking over stuff, like we're living that right now. It's like two of the four major Hollywood guilds are on strike because AMPTP wants to start inserting AI into the creative process and taking away the human element. Like that's the whole point of the story, is like the humanity can't be predicted. You can form patterns, you can make guesses, but it can't be ironclad. And Isai Morales is a really fun, really sinister human avatar for the AI, for the entity as they call it. And as far as Guardians, doesn't quite make my list, only because I started my summer at June. but yes, one of the best films of the year for me, hands down. So moving on, this has not been a good year for horror films. It really hasn't. A lot of franchise sequels, The Pope's Exorcist for some ungodly reason. And most of the films making waves are like the parodies, your Cocaine Bear, Megan, The Blackening, also. But then we have Talk to Me, A24 horror movie from Australia, directed by twin brothers Danny and Michael Philippou. They run a YouTube channel basically about horror and comedy. And this is one of the more disturbing horror films I've seen in recent memory. Like it's up there with Get Out as far as like the actual quality of the writing and the idea of using an inherently flimsy horror device to tell a much more important story. It's like Get Out used this idea of, brain transplants basically to tell a story about Black erasure. Talk to Me uses literally a mummified hand that you play with like a Ouija board, and talk to ghosts, basically as a sheen to talk about mental health and suicide and crippling loneliness. It's amazing what this young cast of no names, like literally Miranda Otto from Lord of the Rings plays one of the characters' mothers, and she's the only recognizable name in that cast. How they basically treat this ability to speak to the dead as a designer drug. Elements of peer pressure and coping mechanisms, it all flows together so well. And then just for good measure, because you're talking a budget of about $4 million here, the Philippou brothers use some really strong makeup, practical effects, and camera techniques to really shock you with the scares when they come. The opening sequence alone, as this brilliant one take, it sets the tone for everything because it shows off their filmmaking skills and finds a way to just drop your jaw when it finally hits its crescendo. Everything in the movie is meant to live up to that, and it does.
I saw a couple more movies in the theater, and I saw The Flash. That is a whole show in and of itself. It's an interesting review. It's not. I definitely don't think it's one of the best of the summer, but it is interesting. And then we saw The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which Danny Mendez and I reviewed right at the theater. That'll be on the website if you want to check that out. But I'm gonna pull out. Because I don't get to the movie, I don't get out as much as you guys. So I'm going to pull out my series list and recommend two series. One is Only Murders in the Building, which just came out with season 3. I've only seen the first couple of episodes. Paul Rudd is in it, and he's amazing. That also has to deal with theater, so if you're a theater nerd, you'll probably dig it because it deals with Broadway. And then the other one is The Bear. Season 2 was some of the best acting and writing I've seen in serial content. Like it was so well written, so tied together, great characters, great character development continues from the first season into the second. It's exciting. To me, it makes working in a kitchen more more stressful than an operating room. And the character development was amazing and wonderful, wonderful actors doing really great work. If that's your thing, definitely they're both on it, both Only Murders and The Bear streaming on Hulu. Were there any runners-up that you guys wanted to throw out there before we have to go?
I can say my runner-up was Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. There were some really wonderful things about that movie, but there was such an air of sadness pervading the whole thing that it just made it, do we need to see Indy this old? Do we need to be reminded that we're all aging? I don't think so. Phoebe Waller-Bridge was fine as his goddaughter, who sets off the whole thing. But then a lot of it was what they've done before, like going through the tunnels and thousands of insects coming out and snakes, except they're eels this time. Just seemed a lot of things were kind of the greatest hits of Indiana Jones. And I thought, well, why didn't they do something new and different? That would have been nice. So it was nice seeing Indy again, but
we actually reported on that when I heard it was coming out. I spoke about it and I was like, is anybody excited for like old man Indy?
Yeah.
Did
we really need a what is this, the fifth outing now? Yeah. Did we really need it? No.
I think most of us forgot about the fourth one. I haven't even had the heart to see the fourth one. To me, it's like the series ended with like Last Crusade. That movie's great.
Ending. No need to do any more.
Yeah. But Harrison Ford's 80 and he looks great and he's still got it. But I kind of couldn't bring myself to see that movie.
Yes. Sad is a good word to describe it, but it's far from, it's only runner up to the entire 2023 field for me. I mean, the dialogue between him and Phoebe Waller-Bridge, if they didn't establish that she was his goddaughter, it would be love interest dialogue, and that's just creepy. Though Mads Mikkelsen was fun as the villain for a little bit. But two honorable mentions for me. One, Joyride. Stephanie Hsu and Sherry Cola are hilarious. There's a lot of good surprising laughs in there. And then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem that came out. Seth Rogen taking the reins on this one. And the animation is superb. There's this like layered sketch approach to it, and everything's kind of off model, which kind of fits the theme of like we want to be accepted for who we are, but everybody's drawn in an awkward way that they're just like no one's quote unquote normal in essence. And growing up with this franchise, this is honestly the first time where I'm watching it and it's like, these are actual teenagers. It's like there's a huge emphasis on these four characters as teens rather than ninjas who happen to be teens. Like if you watch the old cartoons and all the movies, they feel like they're in their mid-20s. These guys actually feel like they're 13, 14, 15 years old. And the voice work is absolutely tremendous in getting that across. They have these weird desires, like they want to get a girlfriend, they want to go to concerts, they want to work on a school newspaper, they want to just go to school. Like there's an actual acknowledgement of their youth in this, and I found that really refreshing.
Do you think it's a departure from what the movies have been, or does it kind of continue on some tradition?
Not necessarily a departure, just a mild tonal shift as far as like a bit more character driven, as it were. And I think a big part of that is not having the Shredder be the villain for this. Instead, they make up Superfly, which is kind of like a combination of like Baxter Stockman's character and an actual fly, and Ice Cube does the voice really well. So it's still the spirit of everything the Ninja Turtles have done for the past, almost 40 years. But again, it's just particular attention is paid to how these are, adolescents with hormones developing and trying to figure out their place in the world, rather than just being these awesome ass kickers who use surfer dialogue. So again, very much in the spirit of everything, like Rogen's affection for the franchise is worn clearly on his sleeve. But just a little bit more of a focus on, what's behind the characters while we're doing this insane level of humor and stunt work via animation. So I was pleasantly surprised. Like
Spider-Verse, I thought the animation looked fantastic. For the film, I would definitely see it. I don't know for me if it's a go out to the theater movie and see it. It's probably a stream it for me.
I saw it in 3D, and the layered approach to the animation works really well in 3D. The only one thing that was kind of like just in a weird meta way just didn't work for me. It's still kind of fun, but it just wasn't. It was kind of just an outside moment. Is they do flashbacks of when the turtles are kids. And when they're like that, they look like the kids from South Park, and Raph is definitely the Cartman of the group. So it's like, but apart from that, yeah, I'm not sure about turning Splinter into basically a tired dad, but to each their own.
We got more movie reviews. Maribeth has been kicking out reviews for us on the website, norestoftheweekendpodcast.com. And Bill, we can find your reviews on
actuallypaid.com.
Maribeth, thanks so much. We hope to have you back. Hopefully you'll have some more reviews. We got stuff coming up in the fall. Maybe we'll do an episode about what we're looking forward to. All right, guys, thanks so much.
Yep.
Thanks, Jason.
And that's all the time we have for today. Thanks so much for taking this trip down the rabbit hole. For more of our content, including more movie reviews, visit our website, norestfortheweekendpodcast.com. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube, youtube.com/getbehindtherabbit. I'd like to thank Maribeth Thueson and Bill Hammon for joining me, and a big thanks to our sponsor, JMR Rentals. For Behind the Rabbit Productions, I'm Jason Godbey. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.